select an appropriate outline which allows listeners to easily follow and understand your speech. Make your message clear with supporting material directly contributing to that message. Use appropriate transitions when moving from idea to another, and create a strong opening and conclusion. Our speaker is a former stand-up comedian and improvisation actor. He cut his teeth with the art form of oration in the toughest way possible, trying to make people laugh. With a speech title From Rough to Roughrider, please welcome Sean Moore.
The MC announced my name. I sheepishly took the stage, and I just stood there, heart pounding in my ears. The lights were blinding, and the smell of smoke and nervous tension filled the air. Okay, deep breath. I can do this. First joke, bomb. Second joke, bomb. Oh my God, I'm dying up here. I had no idea stand-up comedy was gonna be this rough. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow SEC Roughriders, and most welcome guests. That was my first opportunity of public speaking. And as you've already paid your cover charge and your 2-speech minimum, I'm gonna take you on a journey here. A journey from a small boy who was in so much pain that he needed laughter to survive. Then we're gonna go to the clubs, the comedy clubs of San Francisco. And then finally, we're gonna end our destination right here in this very room where I stand before you as a Roughrider. When I was a child, it was rough. I was in a lot of pain. I endured some abuses that I would never wish on my worst enemy. Physical abuses, emotional abuses, even sexual abuses. How does a small boy cope with something like that? How does anyone cope with pain like that? How would you cope with that? I cope with it by seeking laughter and sharing laughter. That was the only thing that I knew to do. Later on as a child, I had an opportunity to explore my comedy roots just from that very seed of the pain there. Now, I started off like a lot of comedians. How many of you knew a class clown growing up in school? I wasn't that. I was a class comedian. You see, the class comedian is the guy who talks the class clown into doing something stupid. From those roots of being the class comedian, it wasn't until years later, after being discharged from the Navy, and finding myself a young man, was propelled by a seemingly force of circumstances onto the comedy stage for the first time. So here I am, I'm 21 years old, I'm in San Jose, California, and I start my own telemarketing business. And I take on this guy who drove a stolen Corvette, wore a toupee, and had about 3 aliases that I knew of. And so, I'm sure you can imagine my shock and my dismay when this guy, of all people, decided to steal all my money and skip town. Needless to say, the business didn't work out so well. But with nothing to lose, I hit the streets of San Francisco to follow my dream, my childhood dream of being a stand-up comedian. And I gotta tell you something. The first year was rough, because when I hit San Francisco, I was broke. I was so broke, I had to live in the YMCA in the Tenderloin District. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Tenderloin District, but let me tell you something. There's nothing tender about it, and people are always trying to get after your loins, if you know what I'm talking about. You better be careful. And to make matters worse, here I am. I'm in the Navy. Now I'm staying in the YMCA. I was afraid of my life was turning into one big Village People song. Not exactly where you want to be. And so that first year doing stand-up was really challenging. I mean, that opening scene that I described to you, that was the first of many, many times that I would go on to bomb. But I kept at it, And I had the camaraderie and the friendship of my fellow comedians to keep me going. And I tell you what, I just kept plugging away and going back on stage. And after a while, I just started to get pretty good. Heck, I even made a little money doing it after about a year or so. And more importantly to me, I even started to win the respect of respectable comedians. I met guys like Chris Rock, Margaret Cho, and the late great Bill Hicks. These people saw my act. This stuff was pretty funny. That meant a lot to me. But I have you know that even though I was on my way to stardom, the big time, the bright lights, LA, my own sitcom, the ghost of my childhood reared the ugly head. The pain that was never healed reared its ugly head. I soon found myself caught up in substance abuse and struggling with chronic and massive depression, crippling depression. I soon found myself out of comedy and out on the streets. I found myself a homeless young man, a drug addict, in absolute despair and without hope. It took an absolute miracle for me to not only get sober, but to save my sanity and to keep from killing myself. And it's that by that same spirit, that same miracle, that propels me and compels me to share my story with anybody who I think could benefit from hearing it. And so with that, I needed to find the vehicle, the best club possible, to give me the skills to share my story. I go online, I find SEC Roughriders. Roughriders? What the heck is a Roughrider? I'm gonna tell you, my imagination went a little crazy with the Roughrider idea. So I got ready for my first meeting. I had my list. Okay, leather chaps? Check. Fuzzy handcuffs? Check. Now wait a minute, how am I supposed to speak with this ball gag in my mouth? It was rough, but I came here anyway. And I have to say I'm so blessed to be here because I find myself surrounded by the most wonderful group of orators I've ever had a chance to experience and spend time with. This has been a harrowing journey and an exciting journey. It took for being that little boy who just wanted to have more laughter than pain. It took me to that young man who wanted to share that laughter with as many people as possible. And finally, it brings me here to these hallowed halls of SEC Roughriders, which I have to say, even without the leather, we are still the most disciplined group in all of Toastmasters. Thank you very much.
Woo! Good job.